Hi, my name is Joe Jackson. I'm a journalist, author, interviewer, and broadcaster. I also do this podcast series called the Joe Jackson Interviews Podcast, and it's based on the roughly 1,400 celebrity interviews I did over a 30-year period for all major media outlets in Ireland. Speaking of which, during the first decade of the 21st century, I did a radio series called Under the Influence for RTÉ Radio 1. But after going back to the master tapes, I've decided to name the podcast version The Music That Made Me. But in brackets, made me want to make music. What you're about to hear is a wonderful clip of an interview I did. Actually, it was recorded in my kitchen at home, hence the echo, with Brish Shiels. And let me say two things about the part I want to play from a 90-minute tape. When I was a kid, around 14, I saw Phil Lynott on stage in Club Caroline in Glasgow. I think at the time he was part of a band called the Black Eagles. And weird as it may sound nowadays, I'd never seen a black musician on stage. And my only point of reference, I'm almost ashamed to say, was Jimi Hendrix, whose music I loved. But what I vividly remember is walking back from the Jacks, as we used to call it, the toilet in Club Caroline, standing by the stage, too shy to even talk to the opposite sex, and seeing a group of girls staring at Philo, entranced by the guy. I remember thinking, geez, it must be great to be in a band and have girls look at you like that. I was reminded of all that when Brish told me how he set up Philo at the start as the sex symbol of their band, Skid Row. But I also want to say this. I frankly get a pain in the ass hearing the lie about how you two were the band that gave a sense of cultural confidence to we Irish. Yes, they did on a global scale. But speaking here purely as a rock fan who came of age in the 70s, I have to say, and I did happily say to Brish, in a part of the tape I made sure to include in the broadcast version of the show, that I'd never forgotten how proud I felt as an Irish rock fan when I saw on Melody Maker an ad for the first Skid Row LP. Not only that, although I forgot to tell Brish this, circa 1970, I saw the band at the National Stadium in Dublin, and though I've long since rubbed out the bootleg cassette I made on my little Sony tape recorder, I do have somewhere a clip of Pat Egan on stage talking about the band and telling us all to go buy t-shirts and posters. So you can guess how privileged I felt 30 years later, taping in my very own kitchen a private gig by Brish Shiels in which he reminisced about the start of his career and sang for me the first song Phil Lynott ever recorded. I dedicate this podcast to all fellow fans of the original Skid Row.
Philo was singing in the band and he brought his girlfriend along, Carol, beautiful girl. And I told Phil, if I ever seen her there again, he was out of the band. It was his job to get all these young girls, which we had, when Skid Row started. We were only if the girls are there, the lads will follow. And even though we were playing fairly intricate stuff, we weren't stupid. Like, we were around a long time, had to get the women in. So Phil had to tell his girlfriend, said, if I ever see it again, you're out of the band. And that's it. Click the chicks. Phil actually has that in some of his books that I told him. That's my job, to click the chicks. Which is.
And was that the logic? I hadn't heard that if the girls come, the boys will follow. Their boyfriends will follow.
That's right, yeah. No matter what you were playing.
All right, okay.
Yeah, so we for the heaviest band ever to come out of Ireland, we would have had the most girls at the gigs.
All right, okay. So, but did you just yield your role as potential sex symbol to Phil?
I told him straight out, like it was business, like, and he'll tell you if he arrived here tonight, which could happen very,
Right.
depending on what the circulation is like, he would tell you that's exactly what I told him.
Right.
And you could meet him, any of the lads, Gary Moore, Noel, any of the boys, they'll all tell you the same thing. This is what was stated.
But there's a lot of bands, and in the history of rock, where the male singer or whoever was the sex symbol and somebody on drums, guitar or bass got insanely jealous because they were attracting all the women. So did that ever bug you?
Not in the slightest.
All right,
Because
okay.
the reason we had this great act, there was a film called The Defiant once with Sidney Poitier and Tony Curtis. And I had this idea that the very first gig we done together, which was in UCD, we'd handcuff ourselves together like in the film.
Right.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
So I just done a little thing down the back of Phil's shirt to make sure it would rip when I grabbed it.
All right.
So I fall out with him, and then I come around behind him, and a rippy shirt off his body. It was the best thing you've ever seen. Because Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte was looking at you there. No shirt, nothing on.
Right.
Only like his trousers, but his shirt is gone.
Yeah.
And then I moved back, and he throws the bass at me, my own bass, you know. Then he's on the floor, we're wrestling around. And the bouncers all jumped up on the stage. It was the best show of all time. And Brian Shield was just launching Granny's Intentions, and BP Fallon and all this there. Nobody's ever seen that like this. So we worked everything out. Like we had to be a show.
That's pure rock theatre.
Yeah, it was a great night. The guys, I can still remember it. They were there. UCD, the place was full. The bouncers jumped up on stage to grab the band. They thought myself and Phil were actually gone.
I bet all the sadomasochists love it. Handcuffs, black and white guys, shirts torn off. You got the crowd. You got the gay guys on board, didn't you?
I say that's a great idea. You know, the whole thing about the defiant ones and all, with the handcuffs, breaking out of jail.
And that's your earliest, the early explosion of you and Phil in a band setting.
That's right. Tony Curtis and Sidney Poitier. You know.
Okay, you played Sidney Poitier, no doubt. So listen, you want to play us something that was the first song, one of the first songs, and Phil played in the original of this, if I'm remembering right. But you're going to play it for us. Is that right? Is that the right song?
It's New Places, Old Faces. Phil sang on the original version.
Okay.
And it was a song about, like, we lived in the one room on the Fisborough Road, and then we were told we'd have to go because they were wide on the road. So we were the first to go. When we went, nobody else went. The road is still there. Okay. But we're the only house that's actually disappeared. So when you stand beside the red windmill, all you see is these railings. And
I know, this is the later song. This is the song we're playing at the end. Now you're playing Sandy's Gone, aren't you?
I'll play Sandy's Gone with you, yeah. Phil, I've done Sandy's Gone. Phil,
what's the song at the end? Old Friends?
Old Pal.
All right, okay. But which are you going to do for me now?
I can do Sandy's Gone, or I can do New Places.
Which? I'm sorry for stopping you, but it's just that I thought you were walking me into Sandy's Gone.
I'll go with Sandy's Gone.
Will you?
Yeah.
So I'll ask the question again.
Yeah, we're going to have to. It's a different discussion because Phil didn't sing Sandy's Gone at all.
He's nothing to do with it.
New Places, Old Faces. So if you like, I'll leave Sandy's Gone and do New Places.
Yeah, it would tie in more with the conversation, wouldn't it? So was that the first Skid Row single or something? Let me get my facts right.
It was the first Skid Row single.
And was it the A side or the B side?
It was the A side.
All right. New Faces, Old Places.
New Places, Old Faces.
New Places, Old Faces.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask again. Okay, Brush, you have one of the first Skid Row single was called New Places, Old Faces, if I'm getting it right. We don't have it, but you're going to do it for me, which would be great. But talk us into the song. Well,
the song basically was written, as I said, we were living in the Fisborough Road, and we were the first to go, so it's about like people telling you have to move. But in a sense, we were lucky because we went to Capital West and it was beautiful, and this kind of road, and everything worked out terrific. But as far as the song was concerned, Phil actually sang the very first Skid Row single, New Places, Old Faces. It's on Song Records, and you can actually get it at the moment. It's been re-released on Hooks Records, along with 2 live John Peel shows, which Phil is not on because he wasn't good enough to play with the band at that stage for the John Peel stuff. Okay. But he was great for the early stuff.
Appealing to the girls didn't work for Peel, did it?
No, well, we left that behind us for a while. You know, we left that behind us as we suddenly realised that Jimi Hendrix was out there, the Cream was out there, and there's a very good chance we were going to be out there very shortly. It never occurred to us that we wouldn't be as big as the Cream or Jimi Hendrix or anything like that. It still hasn't occurred to me.
Yeah, but I think that's great, and this is what something I really want to say on the show and on the record. You know, as far as I'm concerned, long before Thin Lizzy, way before you two or any of that, the first Irish rock group that gave me as a kid a buzz and made me, when I maybe saw the ad for the first album on Melody Maker, I kind of realised we can do it. That's long before all the others were supposed to give anyone the idea we can do it. You guys did it.
Well, Gary Moore was on with Jerry Anderson there last year, and Jerry was asking him like the comparisons between Lizzy and Skid Row. Gary says there's no comparison. Like, Skid Row is the band, was the band, and always will be the band. Yeah. And if anybody listens to Hooks Records and Skid Row playing live, I mean, start with a 7-minute drum solo. Okay. You know, so cross between like an elephant stampede and a wildebeest chase, and you realise that we were just crazy, but we played in a particular way that nobody has even come close to this day. From a playing point of view, now I'm not talking about lyrics or anything like that, because the lyrics weren't, you wouldn't be, as because you wouldn't be writing home about them. It's just a bit of crack. It's just an excuse for us to play guitar, except for New Places and a few songs like that were actually fairly real. Okay. You know.
Oh, can we hear that? I'd like to hear that, but I want to say that about Skid Row, because I mean the first 2 albums to a lot of rock fans my age, my generation in Ireland, were huge.
Well, Gary Moore, as you know, has went on and is internationally known. Noel and myself still have something to prove that hasn't gone away yet. Right. So who knows, in 2007, we still have something to prove. As long as there's something to prove, we've got to go out and prove it.
All right. It's great to have the hunger still. Let's hear the song. Now that's... Just go back a bit. Sounds first.
So this is the first song Phil ever recorded. I wrote it, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to try and do it in a particular way. Everybody knows this evening, this old house we'll be leaving forever. And everybody knows we've had good times here, me and my dad together. Piece of paper says we've got to go to make way. Well, I'll work out the cards. It's your thing for a while the road. I'll leave that in there. And the queen hides a tear as she sees back in all the years together. And Uncle John tries to hang on, though the time has come to say so long. Forever. People whom we'll probably never know will be using our house as a road. They've promised us a new home, want to call our very own. But what good are new places without old faces? Neighbors come to say goodbye, red rings print round every eye. Don't cry, kisses swapped around like gold, no one has to be told this is goodbye. People whom we'll probably never know will be using our house as a road. They promised us a new home, want to call our very own. But what good are new places without old faces? Leave that in.
Okay. Okay, yeah, Brush, I'm glad you told me to, when I tried to get you to do the song again, you said, no way, Jose. But listening to that lyric there, I mean, I hate to make I'm loath to make the comparison, but it could have been Phil writing later one of his songs, couldn't it?
It's a similar delivery.
Yeah. I know, and the kind of reflective loss of something, or looking on the boys, the family, whatever it is.
You went back to, like, I'm so lonesome I could cry sort of thing. Yeah. So we're kind of, it's a strange thing, we're kind of rockers, like, wrapped up in cowboys' bodies somewhere, you know, like there's something that's there, there's something out there that we tune into every so often, but the guy that the lads that you see out there jumping over the drums and all, that's just for a bit of crack, you know, and the other stuff is like, what, you know, you have to live with it.
Yeah, but even so a lot of people I've interviewed about Irish music, traditional music, would say we dance to defy the shadows, we dance to defy death. That's part of what you do too.
Yeah, well, the whole thing is really that for a certain part of your life, like you rock fairly hard, and then you say, yeah, man, you know, and then you sit down and you're having to sing song, you're not playing a novel or a woman, that's a certainly, you know, a Mad Dog Woman, or Don't Come Off Showband Blues.
Although we are going to play them, for all the Skid Row fans who jump up and say, yeah, I remember that one. Okay, but also, I mean, you did right there, you said, and I just thought it was, and I only asked the question because I listened to the lyric where you said, me and my dad had great times in the house, but you told me earlier you didn't.
That's true, we didn't. But it sounds better, you know. It should have been, or it should have mentioned my brothers, really, Freddie, Paul, and Mo. You know, they were all the footballers. But it
just shows you're a romantic, right? And a romantic vision of the past.
Everybody knows he's had, like, Freddie, Paul, and Mo doesn't rhyme with that. Dad does, so I put him in there, you know. But wherever he is, I hope he's looking after me, you know.
Excellent. Okay, look, we did mention. Hi, Joe Jackson here again, and thank you for listening to this edition of the Joe Jackson Interviews podcast. If you want, you can subscribe to my podcast channel on any podcast server, or to the visualized version on YouTube.